going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 218. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him... E, it's Houston week. How we feeling?
Fucking amped up, baby. Fuck these losers. I hate them.
Yeah, man. You jumped on the recording earlier, and the first thing you said to me was, fuck these losers. I was like, oh, boy. It's Houston week.
I'm ready to go, man. I am amped up for this game, as I feel like everyone in the Austin FC community is. Looking at where they're at in the table, we understand that they're not looking too great. We always love to see that. But let's not overestimate them going into this matchup. Handle business on the road, get an important 3 points, and keep this thing rolling here. So fuck these Houston Dynamo boys, and let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, and shout out to any of the fans who are going to be able to make it out to Houston. I know we have, as we always do, a large traveling contingent going out there to H-Town. But if you are, like us, unable to make the trip on this particular Saturday, and you're staying in the Austin area, you come join us over at the Los Verdes watch party, man. The Brutorium Brewery and Kitchen, 6015 Dillard Circle here in Austin. Kickoff, of course, 7:30 this Saturday, back to our regularly scheduled 7:30 start time. So the party at the Brutorium getting started at 6:30. Large indoor screen showing the match we mentioned on Sunday's recap episode, the Bat City Blonde Ale and that green queso and chips. And again, Stanley Hudson rejoices somewhere that it's also National Pretzel Day, so they'll have some tasty, soft pretzels over there at the Brutorium. Axe throwing as well. So look, especially if Austin FC, you get behind in this match, you go over, take out some aggression, throw in some axes at halftime. I think that's maybe right up our alley if the disaster strikes here. Free parking out there at the Brutorium, and it is all ages here at the Brutorium, so you can bring the family out starting at 6:30, match at 7:30. Seems like it's going to be another great event.
I mean, they just keep putting on bangers. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into the rest of episode 218 here in the North End, just want to remind you all listening or watching on the YouTube that you can support the show financially by downloading the audio versions of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. You can toggle on auto downloads. That supports the show going forward, and you don't have to think about it again. If you want to go the extra mile, rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, hitting that subscribe button helps us grow the show as well. And you can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, here on episode 218, hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins, wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. Taking care of a couple little news items here. But first, some things that we wanted to talk about that we kind of forgot to mention in our celebration/frustration that was Sunday's episode. I mean, first thing you do when you walk in the stadium, you know it's coming. You check out the TIFO after the anthem. And I just wanted to circle back on this because I think that as they pretty much always do, but especially this one, this TIFO deserves a lot of praise. I know it has gotten a lot of praise, but we didn't want to, let anybody think that we were not just as impressed by this as everybody else. Because I know I wanted to shout out our boy B, right? Half of the North End Pirates, who was responsible for the Dessler artwork here. And I think it was like 19 different artists on this TIFO. I also, the North End is going to like the B-Roo when it's the, kind of the punch picture there. I also like the mirror too at the top, the LDAs. Any of these other ones catch your eye?
I like the BV one. Obviously, the Superman kind of aspect there looks great. The Dubersarski's fun. Stuver. Yeah. I mean, all of them are fantastic. We just have some incredible artists who have contributed to these TIFOs over the years. And this one is it's really, really beautiful. And seeing with all that green and everything, different shade, it's fantastic. Just a great job all around by everyone who participated here. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Yeah, and big thumbs down to any people commenting on social media posts of this TIFO talking about Austin doesn't have any legends, this or that. those people are fun at parties, man. So, shout out once again to the TIFO team, man. I can't wait for the next one. I'm always pressing you when there's a TIFO. I'm like, bro, I want to get there. We want to see this one. And it's just shout out to you, E, for allowing us to see this TIFO last weekend.
I've only had to throw down $500 on parking for us to get there in time this year, so I'm glad I can contribute to the local economy.
Oh God, dude, we're gonna have to really start leaving early this next month, because the month of May coming up, man. Potentially 9 games between May 1st and May 31st. 6 of those could potentially be at Q2 Stadium, depending on how the Open Cup works out. So we are, of course, getting ready for that. And after this Houston match this weekend, I think we need to maybe set aside some time on Sunday to just look ahead to the gauntlet that is May, especially the beginning of the month, man. And it looks like we're going to be going into the month of May and beyond with no reinforcements here, because the transfer window does close today on Wednesday. I have not been able to find anything about like a specific time, right? I'm used to, whether it's NBA trade deadline, NFL, what have you, even MLB, right? You get these deadlines at a certain time of day. I think it's just midnight tonight. We're recording on Wednesday afternoon. And some deals have been flying around here on deadline day. We saw Willie Agata get traded to Real Salt Lake from Sporting KC. And that literally, as we are talking right now, RSL's potential deal to sign Robert Bosnick from Boa Vista, who was a offseason rumor for Austin. That deal is off after there's been a lot of reporting from Tommy Scoops on Boa Vista and not paying transfer fees and this and that. So if you want to go find that, you go check out Tom Bogert's social accounts. But RSL literally just completed the deal for Willie Agata, $500K in GAM, up to $350K GAM add-ons. LAFC is reloading. Ryan Raposo apparently was a free agent. They signed him. They got Frankie Amaya on loan from Liga MX, who was just bought for $4 million. So, there are teams making some significant moves here today. And I know we've discussed this on multiple episodes over the last month or so. But now that we're here, where it appears we're not going to get any sort of late surprise green smoke, again, would I have liked to see maybe an MLS vet in a supplemental deal? Yes, I've been saying that for a while now. But I also think with those more significant spots, we have U22s open. We've got 3 senior slots, 2 international slots. I think not signing somebody at the end of this primary window means Roto has targets, potentially agreements in place already that just haven't been submitted to the league. And I think that also would indicate that these summer transfers will likely be, unless it's a U22 deal, free transfers, which again is always good for a roster build.
Yeah, I mean, given my lack of knowledge on what's going on behind the scenes with Roto and everything, I'm going to withhold most of my judgment here.
Sure.
That we haven't gotten someone. Obviously, a bit disappointed. I think we could have used some veteran help on the back line at center back, but we are paying a substantial amount for Julio at this point in time. So I get maybe not wanting to tie up some more money there. I understand that. But I was with you on board with the supplemental spot, trying to get a veteran in here who could give us a little bit more depth. But if patience is what we need to get to this second window where we have some stuff lined up, potentially some more high profile kind of names, some better players, then I can withhold the judgment till then. Obviously, we're sitting in second right now, a great place to be. And we'll see where we're at once we get to that secondary window here.
Yeah, so if something happens, I guess, between when we press end recording here and the end of the window, presumably at midnight, maybe we'll add something on here. If it was something crazy, we get a little Green Smoke live stream, but I think we're waiting until the summer for that. So then closing out the business from the weekend, 5th straight week, I believe, that Austin FC has a player named to the team of the match day. This time it's for Owen Wolf. Once again, an Austin player who doesn't score a goal but gets honored on the team of the match day. Owen, of course, without the goal, there on the bench for the team of the match day. But still, again, congrats to Owen. I think well-deserved. And keep that streak going, man. If you get a player on this team next week for 6 weeks in a row, probably means he had a good result out in Houston.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, and honestly, a shout out and a recognition to what this team's been able to do for the first 9 weeks of this season here. So big shout out to Owen, well deserved. And like you said, getting these guys in who typically it's goal scorers. So to
Yep.
be getting guys in, you're getting your hard work acknowledged and everything, and that must feel good. So absolutely, let's keep this thing rolling here versus our little brothers down there to the south.
Yeah, so then we also got some resolution, whether we like it or not. Disciplinary committee handing down some fines and some official warnings for the post-match fracas, as you coined it on episode 217E. Disciplinary committee issued official warnings to both clubs and both head coaches. So Nico and Greg Vanney both getting official warnings for violating the league's mass confrontation policy, and then fines, as you see on the YouTube here, for Guilherme Biru, Danny Pereira, and Diego Rubio. Then the Galaxy didn't walk out unscathed. Eric Zavaleta, Mateus Nascimento, and Joseph Paintsil. Undisclosed amounts here for the post-game activities. And I did see Danny, I think, responding to Verde Nation on Twitter, who, put out a tweet talking about the fines, and Danny said, "What'd I do?" So I don't know. I kind of agree with him. So anything from you on this?
I mean, you see those three names there for us, and those are three guys who are definitely not afraid to have their opinions heard and to throw themselves into the fire there. So good on them. I mean, Paintsil was going absolutely bonkers. I don't know, if there's one guy at the situation who I hope was levied a heavier fine, I hope it was Paintsil, because he just lost his goddamn mind.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And also, it's very Diego Rubio to get fined in a match you didn't play in.
He could have been injured. He could have been injured. I bet you he would have been up in there.
Brendan Heinzike was also fined for failing to leave the field in a timely manner. And I disagree with that. Jogged off the field, and I think it's fair to want an explanation for the red card that he was shown. But fine was issued there, so hopefully those are being taken care of by the appropriate parties. So let's unless you have anything else to add, we can move into Houston here.
I mean, I was going to say it was a rough week for the entire officials across the league last week. I don't know if everyone keeps up to date with every game that takes place per week and everything, right. But there was a lot of situations going on where fans were really upset, players were confused, red cards were being rescinded, BHI obviously getting whacked twice there, thrown out of that game for we still haven't been given a reason. I don't think we will. But still, it was a rough week for the officials there. So I'm hoping that we can get some correction and move on from this, because it was not pretty.
And again, if he says something that's so bad that warrants that red, then that also probably warranted a fine. So the fact that BHI didn't get a fine for whatever he said, again, it just feels really stringent there. But either way, you got the dub. We're in second, and we move on to the Copa Tejas opener for Austin. Of course, Houston and Dallas kicked off Copa Tejas 2025 on opening night, where Dallas did steal all 3 points from Houston. So a victory here on the road, obviously not only would be good just based on our rivalry, our hatred for Houston, and the table in general, but could really bury the Dynamo in this 2025 Copa Tejas competition. So you are on the match preview here at the northendpodcast.com this week. So I'll throw it to you, and I'll play, I'm in a supplemental spot here for this preview.
There we go. Support role. I like that. So if you're looking at the table right now, Austin FC sitting in second place, Houston down there in 14th. One win, a surprising victory against LAFC, 1-0. I believe that was in Houston. But correct me if I'm wrong in your supplemental role here.
You got it.
-6 goal differential on the season, sitting on 7 points. This team's been a bit banged up. They have some long-term injuries that they've been dealing with. We've also seen an exodus of some of their top players. One in Hector Herrera, who I am just so incredibly there it is.
Should I pull up the table for you?
There we go. Very, very beautiful. One in Ache, who I am just so incredibly relieved to not have to play against anymore. And then the hated Coco Carrasquilla, someone that I absolutely despise, a flopper, a dirty player, who also exited this Copa Tejas rivalry with a bike kick right in front of our faces in the 84th minute in September of 2024. So happy to see that he's gone. We'll get into the newly newly founded, I guess, deep history that you've brought up with these teams when you've been on the article previews, the match previews, and everything like that. And it's a spicy one. Some Dynamo fans will talk about the fact that they got hardware and they got silverware in their trophy cabinet. And while it may be true, those two MLS Cups that they won were with a stolen team, a stolen franchise. All right. So the Dynamo coming to the MLS in 2006, they had relocated the entire San Jose Earthquakes club, player personnel, and staff to Houston in 2005, began their campaign in 2006, and then ended up winning back-to-back championships in those 2 years. I do want to point out a very important caveat for that. There was only 12 teams in the league at that time in both of those seasons. So, okay, you won a champion, you won two championships with the team that you took from San Jose in a league that only had 12 teams. I think two teams folded within the next like 2 or 3 years. So this was a point in time where MLS is not even remotely close to the level that we see it at right now, or the level we saw it at when Austin entered into MLS. But despite all of that, Austin has still been able to dominate this matchup here, as you can see if you're watching on the YouTube, with 7 wins. You got 3 wins.
So I've got last year's, that last meeting pulled up because I jogged my memory earlier today in my supplemental role because obviously we remember last year that the Coco bicycle kick in the 84th minute at Q2 Stadium was not only kind of the end for Josh Wolf, right? That made it almost impossible mathematically to make the playoffs, but it was the first time Houston had ever gotten any sort of result in Austin. And I did not remember that we nearly doubled them up on XG. We created 5 big chances, missed all 5 of them. So again, on paper, this one should have been another fucking win. So again, I pulled this up just to remind myself and everybody else that this has been on paper and with the results dominated by Austin FC for the better part of the last 2 years.
Yes, absolutely. And in that game, that was a heartbreaking match. I remember it very well. Obviously, that bicycle kick going in there for Karaskia. But 7 wins for Austin, 4 wins for Houston in this matchup. And we had been hanging our hat on first, most, and last. So I'm excited to get back to last here with this matchup coming up versus Houston. I know you want to talk a little bit about the San Jose team that this Houston team stole and their success that they had before being moved to Houston. So I'll let you get into that.
Yeah, I just wanted to, kind of bring up as we get the actual head-to-head here, 7 wins, 4 losses, and no draws for Austin FC in this all-time head-to-head. Right? It's not like they moved the Quakes to Houston and then all of a sudden built this juggernaut to go back-to-back. In the Shield standings, San Jose in the 4 seasons preceding their move to Houston, and again, it was just that 2-year absence before the Quakes returned as an expansion franchise to the San Jose area. In the 4 years preceding their move to Houston, in the Shield standings, 2nd, 7th, and 1st. So you took a championship contending team, moved them to Houston. They were still very good. And since then, in the league, haven't done shit.
Nope. It's been difficult for them. They do have 2 cups that I will acknowledge. I am willing to concede this 2018 U.S. Open Cup as well as 2023 Open Cup champions. So I will recognize them for that. But those 2 rings to me are just as fraudulent as they come. This roster has had a bit of turnover, as I mentioned there. Sebas Ferreira also out. They brought in Ezekiel Ponce, I believe, last year.
Correct.
And one of the mainstays now that I've been looking at for a little bit, and it was Ibrahim Aliyu, who I thought was really, really good for them last season. He's dealing with a big injury, and I don't think he's expected back until late May. But he's a very good player. They will be without his services. You look at this team, and there's not a lot of things that they do really well. They're pretty solid in possession, which we have known for a while. And to add a little bit of extra spice to this matchup here, we all know our boy Josh Wolf down there in Houston, putting on that Wolf ball, adding into the he's much more of a defensive coordinator, I believe, for them at this point in time. But this is a team that's just really struggling right now. They've had some really difficult, kind of embarrassing losses. As I mentioned, the one victory versus LAFC, who is a team that they have played surprisingly well throughout, I think, probably the last like 3 seasons with those two teams matching up there. But they do not score a lot, sitting on 8 goals, 14 conceded. They do well in possession. They're not generating a lot of chances. It's an interesting roster build because I do think we can acknowledge the additions of Jack McGlynn and this new player that we're going to get into. And I know you got a little bit for the people there, which I'm very excited about as well. Amin Bassi, one of my least favorite players of all time. Can't stand him. Do acknowledge that he does have some skill up there, but they have some guys. They just haven't really been able to put it together here. Ben Olsen and his crew obviously looking for some answers. And just as we saw with the Galaxy team last week, this is a team that if you want to find your way into one of those wild card spots, one of those potential playoff spots, you're going to have to start turning this thing around at some point in time and stacking up some points, looking to defend their home turf, which should be filled with, I don't know, 100 to 200 Houston fans tomorrow. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. Obviously, we know the rivalry aspect of this. Two teams that do not like one another. Usually you get a little bit more up for these interstate games here. So I know that we're going to have to come out ready to play, but on paper, we're a much better team than these guys.
Yeah, you mentioned, right, Coco out, Sebas for a finally mutual contract termination there after, I mean, that's one of the biggest wastes of a DP slot that we've seen in our time as MLS fans. I know there's others, but that one hits close to home in a good way. I think you mentioned, right, that Ache right now with Toluca, so that was obviously, I mean, the Hector Herrera era ends in Houston with him spitting at an official and being shown a red in the playoffs. Like,
it's all part of the ride.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest issues for this team, though, was that they sold Mikhail like a week before the season, who is their best defender. Yeah. And so leaving that spot open, and I think it was the right move for Houston because it was a club record fee. I think it was like $6 million, and he was a guy that I believe they signed initially to their second team. So like you got to make that move from a business standpoint, but it kind of left him high and dry, plugging in guys like Ethan Bartlow, who has not played great overall this season. This guy, Obafemi Owadesu, they call him Femi. He was signed from Dynados, and he has been playing a ton for them. He's signed on a supplemental deal for them with 2 option years. You mentioned Jack McGlynn, right? He was the first cash for player trade that involved a homegrown player in MLS history coming over from Philadelphia. He's been instrumental in them having any sort of hope in these games early in the season. Nico Ladero is there now, obviously, you know, in his waning years of his career, but on just a normal senior slot, that feels like pretty good business to me. Junior Urso came in, I believe, from Charlotte was where he was last. I know he's Charlotte and Orlando over the last couple years for Urso, and he's coming back off an injury. Andrew Tarbell was who they rolled into this season with, and unfortunately Tarbs is out for the year with a knee issue. Then Jimmy Maurer, their backup, was in net. He gets hurt the next game, so I think for 3 matches, at least 2, they rolled with Blake Gillingham, who was on trial with Austin FC for about 2 weeks in the preseason before Houston signed him. So they've got Gillingham on a supplemental deal. I actually think we might see him for Dynados this weekend because Maurer is on the mend, and they just signed Jonathan Bond, right, who has a lot of MLS experience, was with Watford in the English Championship, playing quite well. So acquiring him automatically gives them an upgrade in goal because another guy we didn't mention, they did not retain Steve Clark. So kind of, I mean, that's a big Wuju loss for us. Indeed. Because you know we love to see Steve. And then at the end of March, and he just made, I believe, his MLS debut, made his debut last weekend and scored the equalizer in stoppage time. Andre Linger, who came over from Slavia Prague in the Czech Republic. And I told you this has been in my head all week since I saw his name.
Fucking Lingerer, man.
Yeah, totally.
Linger.
Hardcore.
One of my favorite movies of all time. Pineapple Express. Always good for a nice North End reference there. Hopefully Andre doesn't ruin that reference for us here this week. I mean, he's filling that second DP slot as we've had the roster profile here on the screen. on the YouTube up for a couple minutes. So what I believe happened here with Linger coming in is Artur. You can see he's able to be bought down with Tam. So I imagine he is now a Tam player, and Linger has slotted in as their second DP, because this is a 2-4 GAM build, and they are full up with 3.7 in GAM available, 3.7 million rather. So they've got a little bit of roster flexibility here, and they have a lot of contracts that are coming due. Like, all but one of their senior roster players that aren't TAM, U22, or DPs, all of them are expiring at the end of this year. 3 of their 4 U22s are expiring at the end of this year. 3 of their 4 TAM players are expiring at the end of this year. So this is a roster that I think is very much in flux going forward. Yeah. And I think we're going to see a very different Houston over the next season or two. But even with what they've got here, dude, like, adding in Linger, getting a guy like Urso back, more time with some of these new pieces, McGlynn trying to gel with Ponce and Bassi and Kowalczyk. I think this team is better than their record, not necessarily to the level of the Galaxy last week, but I think if we played this team a month ago with Gillingham in net and a number of other guys out who are either already back or on the mend, and no Andre Linger in sight, I think this would have been a definite, we're going in there, we're getting 3 points, and maybe in embarrassing fashion. Yeah. But now I just think this is a much more competitive game now, and just another team that I don't expect the coaches or players to take Houston lightly, because they understand the gravity of this match. But I think the fan base as well, we should always expect to beat our rivals. But I think just judging them based off the standings, as we're the first people to make fun of Houston when they're down. But I do think this team is better than the table shows. And they're like 5 games out of the wild, or 5 points rather, out of the wild card right now, a quarter of the way through the season. I don't, as much as their fans may be panicking, I think the reality is that this team is much more mediocre than bottom of the table in my eyes.
I think that's fair. Also, as we mentioned, they're dealing with some injuries here. You got to get some guys back and see them at full strength.
Yep.
I was preaching versus that. Leading up to that Galaxy matchup, that you had to come out on the front foot ready to play, because we said they were dangerous. I might have given them a little too much credit for what they were able to do. Same thing here with this Houston matchup, but you, as an Austin player, you have the energy, the anticipation that comes with playing one of your rivals. So I do not expect us to be lackluster as we come out of the gates here versus this Houston team. I think I might have misspoken, said Aliyu was out, but it looks like he's been getting some time as of late. He's only totaled about 24 minutes over the last 4 matchups here. But a guy who I was pretty afraid of, his speed, his ability to get out into the open, I always respected. I thought that his finishing ability was not where it needed to be, because he was getting balls into space and getting good opportunities in on keepers and everything like that. So if he's ramping up a little bit here, I think that does add an element to this team that they need. Artur, I think a very understated player who does a lot of the little things for a team that raises the floor for a team. He's a good defensive player. He's good in possession. He's physical, and he's got a little bit of leadership qualities that you're going to need. They have a bit of a void behind him on that back line, and that's what they really have been struggling as of late to start this season. Excuse me. So there's going to be opportunities to score on this team, giving up 14 goals this year, but we're just better. Yeah, we are a better team on paper. We have executed our game plan better up until this point of the season. And I think that with the struggles that Houston has had, the moving on from players that were kind of mainstays for this team, Coco Carrasquilla, Ache, guys that you knew, McHale, like they're trying to find a bit of their identity again, because we knew that this team was scrappy, solid in possession, and we're going to be playing some hard-nosed defensive football with Ache in the middle there, kind of commanding everything. They're still searching for their identity a little bit, and I hope that they're not able to find that this week of practice leading up to this matchup. But still, they're going to struggle with our offensive prowess. I know that the goals right now aren't coming. We haven't looked great, but you and I are definitely in lockstep in regard to the fact that this team is definitely underperforming our expected goals. And I think when you add in, we've had a deep history of underperforming expected goals. But when you take into account now that you have 3 guys who are bona fide goal scorers, who are on our front line, attacking opposing defenses in BV, Buka, and Mirtu, you have to assume that those guys are going to regress to the mean and start getting some of these goals and putting these things away here. I think you mentioned before we jumped on, we've out XG'd 8 of our 9 opponents this season. And if you remove the disaster that was the 5-1 thrashing at the hands of a very good Vancouver team, I'm not going to discredit them for that win, but a 5-1 loss is a huge outlier when you look at the fact that this team has only given up 3 goals in the 8 other contests that we've played. So like the defense is performing, and having gotten that 5-1 ass whooping kind of taste out of our mouth here, we have to be feeling good about the trajectory of this team, because I do think, still, we've been saying it for a while here, we have not reached our ceiling, but that ceiling and that potential is up there, man. This defense is going to travel. We're going to be okay on that defensive side of the ball. If we can get out on this team early, get yourself a nice goal, we'll be okay.
It's a good shout by you on Ibrahim Aliou. Has been mostly in a bench role, it looks like, this season after the first 2 weeks or so. We may be confusing our speedy Houston wingers there. Nelson Quinones is still out for this team.
And a Nolly, right?
Yeah. So again, they still have some names on this injury report that have been notable in the past. But again, this is a team that is getting about as healthy as they've been. And you mentioned old Joshy there in Houston. Apparently he's not in a sideline role, so he's going to be up in the booth, I think, for this one. But it's kind of interesting, right? Because they've always wanted to be a high possession team under Ben Olsen, and they were second in the league last year, 58.9% average possession. They're down to 9th this year, 52.8%, so have not been able to hang on to the ball as much as they would like. They're last in the league in shots on target per match and 27th in XG, 28th in big chances created. That sounds like Josh Wolf to me, but they are physical here. Tops in the league in fouls per match, 6th in yellow cards, just one more total yellow card than Austin has, but they are doing that better, I guess, than us. One thing I've been watching, in the few Houston matches that I've seen, first of all, Jack McGlynn is impressive. Yeah. A young player like that having to settle into, coming from the only club he's ever known in Philly as their homegrown, coming down to Houston, different environment, different weather, different teammates. He's really been settling in over the last couple of weeks. And this team has some impressive draws on the road. Like I think back to that Columbus match, that was impressive. Seattle on the road, draw. That's impressive. And Griffin Dorsey has also been more attack-minded this season than I think we've seen in the past. Maybe a Houston diehard fan would correct us on that, but Dorsey leads this team in progressive carries by almost double any other teammate. So he's somebody that you got to be watching out for down that right side as well, trying to join the attack. But I'm still stuck here on Houston. You started to talk about us, so I guess my biggest question here, and I don't really think it's a question. I think it's overwhelmingly likely that we see Julio start next to Svatak here. You don't go completely away from Julio Cascante just because he had a stinker against Vancouver. But I have seen some other fans putting out ideas like Biru center back, start Kolmanich at left back.
No.
I don't like that at all, and I don't think that's what we're going to see.
God, no. We better not see that. And I don't think there's any way Nico goes to that. I will jump back to Houston just really quickly here. You look at their last 3 results. You get the 1-0 win versus LAFC. You have the Galaxy on the ropes. They're almost last breath in that game. You get a fantastic free kick from Diego Fagundes to knock that game up 1-1. You only walk away with a point. But then you have the reverse of that, where you get an equalizer in the 96th minute versus a good Colorado team to salvage a point there. So they have been on the up and up a little bit here. But again, the bar was quite low before they had those three matchups. So let's talk about the good guys here. No way do I want to see Biru starting at center back and Komanich starting on the left.
Not when Julio's healthy.
Of course not when Julio's. If we had two center backs down, then yes, I could see trying to go to that and doing that. And at that point in time, I would feel better about it given the situation, given the circumstance. But with a healthy Julio and healthy Svatak, no way do I want to see Biru slotted back. That just limits everything, not everything that Biru does well, but it just takes a lot out of the wind out of his sails and what he's able to do. We know he wants to get up. You mentioned Griffin Dorsey on their side wanting to get up and down the field. Well, you're going to have to get back, brother, because we're going to be coming at you on the other side. So, like, I'm not overly concerned about his progressive carries and everything for that team, because he's going to have his hands full, hopefully, with the starting lineup that you and I want to see, the formation that we envision here. I am a bit curious, and I do wonder if Nico does want to take the foot off the gas a little bit going onto the road. We've seen a much more conservative approach, which is pretty much the case with every team when they go play on the road in this league. But for me, it's the 4-3-3 once again, and I hope to see, and I was encouraged, shout out to Aries for giving us some context from a Spanish interview where Nico mentioned that the Buca benching was a performance thing. I don't think that that's overly just, but if the coach does, that's why he's the coach. That's why he gets paid. And I can understand that. And I thought that if that was the context and you saw the way that Osman responded to that, then this is a good thing. I saw another comment on the last episode that said that it might have lit a fire underneath Obrian and Buca, and I can get behind that as well. So when I was being highly critical of Nico in that regard, I do want to say that it did work out with the way that we got the 3 points with the Galaxy there. We got the 3 points. That's all I really wanted to see. But I hope we have been able to move past that, because when we get these guys on space, you got Mirtu on the left. We saw the way that he played that dangerous right foot with that diagonal shot that absolutely would have beat McCarthy. You give these guys space, and BV getting that space as well, where he's not paired up with the two striker kind of look, two attacking forward kind of look with Mirtu. You're going to have the chance to score on this team. Like I said, that back line is not that impressive anymore. The physicality, yes, is still going to be there. And I do think there's going to be some chippiness and a good amount of fouls in this game. So we're going to have to be ready for that. But yes, it's a 4-3-3 for me. Absolutely no way do I want to see Biru at center back and Komanich on the left.
Yeah, and I think with Komanich now, like going back to decision day of last year, the guy's in pretty good form. Like, I don't have much negative to say about him. For me, it's more about how good I think Biru is and how important I think he is on both sides of the ball. Not that I'm not comfortable with Komanich out there if we have to go that direction, right? He's been good in relief.
He's been good. He's in good form. We just also understand the limitations that he has.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
That's really
especially in his starts. In his starts historically, he's one of the most easily schemable players in terms of taking him out of any sort of offensive threat. You just play the left foot. He just hasn't proven in the past to be able to beat those allegations, right? From us, right? Like, you gotta put it on film. Yeah, for sure. With you on the 4-3-3, of course, like, as we were talking about in the offseason, is like, good fucking luck against this team if you've got a Zuni able to float wide left. You know Buca on the right is one of the most dangerous one-on-one threats. And if you have to double one or both of those guys, the lanes it opens up for Vasquez and anybody crashing behind him. And you saw both Danny and Owen, and even in certain moments, Sabo playing behind those two, able to crash the top of the box and be dangerous themselves because of the attention the opponent had to pay to those attackers on the wing. And I do think that we will certainly see that more often going forward, given how good it looked, that we put up our highest XG numbers, even taking the penalty attempt out of the XG equation, you generated the most expected goals that you have through 9 matches this season by putting those guys, not even Buka, by giving Azuni the space and putting that 3 wide, up top, presenting that look to the opponent. Defensively, whatever you got to do to make the 4-3-3 work for me is what I want to see. I'm not surprised if we see them go back to the 4-4-2 look, right? Be a little bit more solid in the defensive shape. I understand that's what has been so well drilled here in the early parts of the season, where it's given, again, you talked about, right? You take out the outlier. It may not be an outlier once we go through more of the season, but right now that game very much is. And 3 goals across the other 8 matches. Like, there is very little to complain about in terms of the results. I feel like most of the fan base complaints are that we want it to look better. We want to have more fun winning than we already are. So again, I just want to get a fucking result against these assholes. Get back, like you said, to first, last, and most. We've got 2 of those locked up for the rest of the season, no matter what.
Yep.
But we want that 3rd leg as well.
I'll throw this to you.
Okay.
Given a clean injury report, would you rather see Ilya or Sabo get the start? Who's your midfield for this matchup? I mean, because again, like we said, we do think that they have some guys, some players that you're going to need to respect, and we've seen a good chemistry from anyone who's been in the midfield. Really, we understand Ilya, when he's starting, is going to be wearing the band. Now you got no BHI. So, like, if he's not starting, who's getting the band here? And what's that midfield going to look like?
Yeah, that's a good point. If he doesn't start, I think it goes to Brad, which, again, I don't always like, because Brad can't run 60 yards to go complain to the official when that is appropriate. I think I don't know how likely it is. I don't think I can prognosticate anywhere close to something that I'm confident in terms of how likely Ilya is to start, because who are we dropping? It ain't Owen.
Nope, it can't be.
Owen is undroppable right now, I think. And that's famous last words, I guess. But then it's, of course, between Sabo and Danny.
Both
and I think both, like maybe Sabo, but I just don't feel good about dropping any of them right now. So again, it's a good problem to have. And if you put the Nerf gun to my head and said, make a call on your 3 midfielders, I say you run the same 3 guys out there who got the dub last week.
Okay.
But I think it's a good point by you that no Heinz Ike, leadership void, right? That's lots of guys bring those leadership qualities, but those are the 2 that have been chosen by the coaching staff / the group. So maybe you do see Ilya in there. Do you have a strong lean one way or the other?
I don't know. I just think that is an element of the decision here.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I don't feel great about Brad getting the band either. And that's not a knock at Brad. He just can't be up in the field talking to the fucking referees when they're on the other side of the pitch. So like, I just don't feel great about that. So I do think that is a component here that might be looked at. And again, taking the Nerf gun from you, put it up to me. I think it's Pep. Would be the most likely. But still, it's interesting because, it's tough to say, I want one of those guys in the midfield taken off the pitch so that we can get our captain out there to give us that element of leadership, the calming kind of presence that Ilya has been, as well as a very good communicator and rallier for the boys here. Which
what he brings would be extremely valuable, I think, in this match specifically, going up against Houston in a very high, tensions are high, especially for guys that have been around in this rivalry. So I think that's a good point by you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm with you on, like, I just don't know how to squeeze him in.
Yeah, and especially I think another element to the equation here is if you are going to be in that aggressive kind of 4-3-3 look in this game, I do think you might want to get Ilya in there for a bit more defensive support.
Sure.
Pep's been, and again, this is not because Pep needs to be taken out of the lineup. It is just the circumstance, the situation we find ourselves in with these other variables of no BHI, the intensity of this matchup, and the look that we saw the way that this team was generating chances in that last matchup versus the Galaxy here. So I guess I'll say I'm gonna anticipate an Ilya start here, given all those things that we just went over.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. And again, it's good problems to have, man. When have we had four midfielders that were like, all of these guys need to play?
Yeah,
but we don't. And like, there are ways to do that. You go 4-4-2 on offense and just keep Book off the field. I do not want to see that. But
I don't see that either.
And
if it was a performance thing, the man performed last week.
Yeah, for sure.
He performed very well last week. So I think we're able to kind of close that chapter with him and Nico for now. Obviously, the long season here, but looking forward to moving on from that, and hopefully Buka in a good space, ready to come out with a lot of confidence after what he was able to do in the Galaxy matchup.
Anything else for you on this match, E, that you wanted to add?
I think I was rightfully winning on Julio after his performance in Vancouver. And again, I was not going to pin a 5-1 loss on one player in an 11-man fucking sport, but his errors were grievous in that game. And not only were they grievous, they are some of the things that we know about Julio, who can get caught ball watching, who can be caught flat-footed and on defensive assignments and everything like that. And the pairing of him and Svatok is not something I feel as confident in as the pairing of BHI and Julio, or as the pairing of BHI and Svatok. So I think we're going to have to really keep our eye on Johnny here. As you mentioned, Griffin Dorsey getting up and down the field a little bit is going to stretch us. But I think, like you said, where it's like, A, does the opposing team want to double Ozuni and Buka? Okay. B, are they going to do that? And then C, are you willing to be able to relinquish the amount of offensive generation that you're going to be able to get by focusing your defensive efforts so much on those guys and taking guys out of that midfield to help double team our threatening DPs on the wings there? So they got some questions, that need to be answered here as well. But when it just comes down to it, on paper, we're in better form, we're more talented, and we're just a better team, flat out. Does Bond, it feels okay to me. He's not a world beater in any sense of the word. And like looking for that kind of continuity with your keeper, who has to be a vocal guy for that back line, I think is another aspect of this game that really hurts Houston. So, like I said, no Aliyu, that speed, if he's not, if he's fallen out of favor, I think that really hampers them. And if it's going to be a physical matchup, then come get some, Amin Bassi, because I'm ready for you to meet Basard Savovich, my friend. I am so ready for you to meet him, because he's going to come and see you, and we're going to handle that. All right. And just keep the flopping to to the best of your ability. Maybe only 17 flops this game, as opposed to like a 39-42 number. Bitch.
Only one thing left to do. How much is Austin FC winning by in Houston on Saturday?
2-0.
2-0 victory for E. I'm going 2-1. I'm going 2-1. I'm going to say the home team gets one. And maybe I'm going to put in the call for this. We concede first, and we get our first comeback victory of the season. What better way to shove Houston's faces in it than a 2-1 come from behind?
How long are me and you gonna have to be miserable? When does our equalizer come?
Long enough for me to throw some axes.
Oh, God.
2-0. Go ahead, E. Go ahead.
I wonder if they're going to paint a Josh Wolf face on one of those boards. People
will be doing that instead of watching the game. 2-0 win for E. 2-1 win for me in comeback fashion. Don't care how you get it done, boys. Just bring us home the 3 points.
Come on down to Farmer Field where the champions play. Get ready for the game. It's Lost Business Day.
Last business day on episode 218. It is a double header Copa Tejas weekend. FCito out there in Houston. Sunday night, 6 p.m. Central, taking on Dynados. And you can see in the table here on the YouTube, Austin FC2 coming off the 4-0 thrashing at the hands of Whitecaps 2, sitting on 5 points through their first 5 matches this season. Dynados, a little bit rosier outlook so far, 9 points from their 5 matches. Started hot, right? I believe it was a 3-1 victory over Sporting 2 and then a 5-1 victory over North Texas SC to get their season started. But it's been a home-heavy schedule so far for Dynados. 4 of their first 5 have been at home so far, so make it 5 of 6 this weekend. They have been led by Diego Gonzalez. He's a 22-year-old midfielder. He's a Dynamo Academy kid, doesn't appear to have a first-team deal quite yet, though, but he's got 5 goal contributions through their 5 matches. Exxon Arzu is also still with this team, is one of the most talented players on this roster. Last season, he was the one that got the red card in the first meeting between these two teams last year. He actually signed a first team deal and is on a senior slot for their first team. But again, I believe has appeared and started 4 of their 5 matches here with Dynados. So I expect to see Arzu out there as well. If we click on the Dynamo side of things here, you also get, so I'm just looking for their lineup from the last game, because they still have my guy, Steven Anorgiamphi, there in Houston. Coming off the bench here for Dynados, Gabe Siegel, another first-team asset, been starting up top for Dynados. We might see Gillingham here, like I mentioned earlier, right? Creighton product in training camp with Austin for a few weeks before being plucked away by Houston. So especially if Jimmy Maurer is backing up Jonathan Bond on the first team, I think we guaranteed see Blake Gillingham here. So there's some familiarity there, I imagine, with some of the Austin guys and Gillingham. And for us, Nico Van Ryn, I believe, will in fact be suspended. MLS Next Pro has some wacky red card rules where you are suspended for the next game against the same opponent. So if we had Whitecaps 2 on the schedule more than once, he would be suspended later in the season. But since we don't, reading the rule book right before we went live, it appears that he will be suspended for this weekend's match. So I imagine that means Daniel Chesla will slot in at the center back slot for the first time this season next to Antonio Gomez. And maybe Riley Thomas is staying the night in Houston, right? On the bench for the first team, we would imagine, here on Saturday night. But stick around. And again, if CJ doesn't play many minutes, leave him there too and get these guys some run in, again, a very high-intensity rivalry match here. Dude, these second teams, I think, don't like each other more than the first teams do. There's red cards every other time we play these guys. Yeah,
I was literally just about to say that. This has been a heated contest between these two Next Pro clubs here. On our side of the thing, man, I look back to last season for Austin FC2 where we struggled out of the gates, and then you have that late push to try to make the playoffs, and it was just a too little too late kind of scenario. And I see that building for this team right now. You have the championship season in the inaugural year, and you look at the guys who were on that back line, which we knew was the best defense in Next Pro that year. Shout out Captain Joe Hafferty, who's still kicking ass wherever he is. I think he's in Lexington now. Yeah, he's in Lexington now. And just shout out to him. Your Sal Mazzaferros, obviously your Damian Loss was in net there and everything. And this team is still just, we've gotten younger, which I think is something you want to see out of your developmental kind of roster here for Austin FC2. But searching for a leader, particularly when CJ has not been with this team as much as we have seen in the past. The absence of Jimmy at times, I think, has really hurt them, because those two, I've said it all year, are one of the most dynamic duos in the Next Pro League. I mean, I don't know all of the matchups that they have across the board here, but those two I would probably take over anyone at this
Yeah.
point in time, outside of guys who are consistently playing potentially on the first team level. But this team is lacking an identity right now. There's been a lot of roster turnover. Micah struggling out of the gate, picked up that knock as well, which was a bit concerning. But this team's got to find its footing here. And there's nothing like a little rivalry matchup where you really dislike the other team to go ahead and try to find out who you really are. So hopefully we're able to do that. I'm with you there. If Riley can stay overnight and get in on this game, I'm all for that. CJ doesn't get a lot of run. I'm all for that. So we'll see how this plays out. But this team needs to find their footing right now, to find who they are, their identity, and start trying to build on that.
Yeah, no win since opening night, and it would help to get some clarity around the Jimmy Farcarlin situation. Not active, I believe didn't travel with the second team last week, was not on the first team injury report, wasn't on the bench for the first team. I believe, I saw him post on his Instagram story in the middle of the week, kind of just like, we eyes forward, stuff like that. So again, hopefully whatever's going on there, if it wasn't injury related, is smoothed out and we see Jimmy back on the pitch. And hey, I'm seeing Jimmy and CJ out there again. I feel pretty good going up against almost anybody if we can get that duo in the attack. Unless you have anything else to add here, E, I'll ask you, how much is Austin FC2 winning by on Sunday night?
Well, I do got one more thing to add here. Since that first half of opening day for this team, we've been outscored 8-1. There was a 4-0 first half versus that Colorado club. You concede twice in garbage time to, that game was fucking over. But since that first half, the 35th minute, exactly, you have given up 8 goals and only scored 1 time. So this is not looking good right now. You got to find a way to turn this around. And I think this is an opportunity to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and put us up 2-1 here versus a team that I think is solid. But at this next pro level, a lot of things can happen. These teams don't like each other. And I trust Coach Utley and his staff to be able to get these guys in the right mind frame, right mindset to go out here and get the job done.
Yeah, I'm with you. I respect the talent that I think this Dynamo team has. So I'm going 1-1 draw. But just like I said last week, this is the week that we get a PK shootout win for Marcus Alstrup. So 3 points for E, 2 points for me. But again, don't care how you get it done, boys. You bring back 3 points and we will be happy. And so, E, let's kind of move towards the end of the episode here. Let's touch on the Academy because we've been discussing the GA Cup at length. Right. But the rest of the academy was in action last weekend, and we got a nice recap from the club here in the early parts of the week. U15 squad brought home the title at the Easter International Cup out there in Orlando, Florida. They went unbeaten across 5 matches, a 1-1 draw, a 2-2 draw, then 2 1-0 wins and a 2-0 victory. Again, 5 unbeaten to win the title. You see them there on the YouTube with nice little trophy there. So you put that one in the Academy cabinet. U14s secure silver final victory in penalties. They were out there in Orlando. So were the U13s. The 14s, 3-0 win, 2-1 win, 0-0 draw, and then a 1-1 result in the silver final against Michigan Wolves, ultimately winning on penalties to secure the Silver Cup trophy. And then U13s opened tough against GFI, 5-0 loss, but then responded 0-0 draw against Atlanta, a 3-1 loss against Orlando, 1-1 draw to close out their tournament against IFA Intercontinental. So again, kind of growing throughout the weekend with a tough schedule out there. So overall, a successful trip out to Florida for all levels of the Academy. So keep it up, boys.
Well done, boys. Well done.
And then the last thing in the GA Cup, you see Jacob Peel getting a best 11 shout there at the U16 level. Again, that is, from what we can tell, the most prestigious tournament at the Academy level in the States. So for Jacob to be recognized out there with the run to the quarterfinals that the 16s had, big congrats to him. Well earned.
That is awesome.
Yeah, you love to see that stuff.
Yeah, that's really great, man. Shout out, Jacob.
Let's close it out with the nonsense here, E, and it is a victorious week in the North End. You know, we've been on a little bit of a heater, dancing around the top spot of the table. Well, we get it done here in week 9E. 60 burger, highest score of any team on the season, jumping to the top of the table for the first time since September 2023. Wow. It has been a while. the good guys on top for at least a week here. We've only got a 5-point margin on We Are Austin. Phil's right there too, 48 and 42 respectively. You look at the lower part of the table, man, soccer-wise with their best week, 53. They make up 20 points on Moon Tower, immediately closing that gap that opened up last week. And the VP boys are figuring some stuff out in their front office, man. Transfer window draft will happen next week. Haven't determined if that's going to be live yet, if it's going to be a slow draft, what have you. But next week, with the transfer window closing today, we will be able to, make some adjustments to these teams here. And look, we got a couple guys we got to get rid of too.
That's
in
right.
first place, no less.
We got our eyes on a couple dudes there. Verdes Pennant boys, they're in the league. That's good for them. That's just fun to see. Since 2023, our own goddamn league.
I know. You would think we'd be better at this.
We're getting there. It's the process, brother.
Well,
that's nice.
Here's a strategy question. Because transfer window draft is reverse order of standings and it doesn't snake. So we got the glory this week. We're up at the top. It looks pretty. But do we tank it to go back to third to get fourth pick and jump ahead of Phil and We Are Austin in the draft order? I don't know. We'll talk to the front office. We'll talk to the coach. We'll see what we may rotate heavily this week.
It's going to be tough when you get a Mirtu brace down there in Houston. So.
Yeah. Hey, shit, we'll take that too. Closing it out with the picks recap. Underdog comes up, unfortunately, short. I believe a Bruno Damiani shot prop short because Chucky Lozano and Miguel Almiron hit, I believe, in the first half of each of their respective games. So on the underdog side of things, of course, you lose the unit. We're still plus 10.43 units on the season there, and then right back on the horse in the betting picks here. Austin to win, check. Inter Miami to win, check. Seattle Sounders to win and over 1.5, check. FC Cincinnati to win, check. So you hit all four of those. You'd have to do real bad in the goal scoring picks to not have a profit on the week. And we got close. We got close. But when all is said and done in week 9, you add 3.73 units with the betting picks. So plus 7.88 units at the sports books through 9 weeks, plus 10.43 units at Underdog. And again, you can sign up, join in on the fun at Underdog with our promo code here. The MLS season is here. If you want to make some picks on your favorite players in sports, check out Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em game. You choose higher or lower on between 2 to 8 players, and you can win up to 1,000 times your entry. Underdog is available in 33 states, including right here in Texas. To sign up, click the link in the description of this video and use promo code NORTHEND at sign up, and you'll get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick to get you started. So join the millions of fans who have won billions on Underdog. Promo code NORTHEND at sign up. The link to sign up is in the description of this episode, both on the YouTube or if you're listening wherever you get your podcasts. You click that link, use promo code NORTHEND at sign up, get the bonus cash and the free pick. Then you come back to the northendpodcast.com on Saturday morning and see what we are rolling with into week 10. One more note. When I have the time, I'm going to have to go back. I'll do shit like this. Our basketball team, we scored 60, right, with the official lineup. Our total for the week, 106.
Whew.
That may be the highest in the 2.5 seasons-ish that we've done this league. I'll have to go look because a little extra brag maybe on Sunday make us feel good. Anything else for you here before we shut it down?
Shout out my boy Silverblade, smartest dude on the internet.
Oh, God. I should have hid that comment and blocked him. All right, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 218 of the North End Podcast. We will be back on Sunday, recapping Austin FC's matchup against Houston Dynamo, and probably waiting until Wednesday to recap that FCito match, with that being a 6 p.m. Sunday kickoff. But we'll discuss everything else that happens in the Austin FC universe between now and then. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. We'll do the same, and we'll see you back here on Sunday for another episode of the North End Podcast. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Fuck Houston.